So picture this. You've got this dream to be surrounded by some of your greatest heroes, people that you're inspired by, and somehow they manifest into your life. That's exactly what happened this particular weekend. So we've just had 2 days of absolutely phenomenal workshops, performances, and connection. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about living from the heart. So if you've been watching or listening to our recent podcast, I've been talking about the Living from the Heart Festival, which is all about, instead of living in your head, which is what most people do most of the time, is to operate from your heart. Now, when you operate from your heart, you tap into a level of creativity that defies any kind of human explanation. You've got to experience it. You've got to be there to truly understand it. So with me today, I have 2 of my superheroes who I met back in 2009, 2010. And when I saw them and I heard them play the music that they played, I was blown away. And I thought, one day when I grow up, I'm going to get to collaborate with them. That one day came this weekend just gone. So let's find out a lot more about our guests, Julie Gunn and Ricardo Garcia at the Harun Rabbani Show. So with me are 2 phenomenal musicians, artists. One is a singer, the other is a guitarist. The guitarist is, what can I say? I mean, when I heard him play over the weekend, my heart was like skipping so many beats. I'm surprised it's still in there, right? And so that's Ricardo Garcia. And we also have Julie Gunn, who is an incredible singer. You're going to hear more from her. So Julie, Ricardo, thank you very much for joining me on my show. So first of all, let's start, ladies first, let's start with Julie. Julie, you go around the world singing, dancing with Ricardo. I mean, why do you do what you do? Why you go around the world doing what you do, and what is it that you're doing?
Well, firstly, it all began really with Ricardo. Ricardo's been performing since he was 9 years old. He learned guitar really, really small because it's from his family. It's flamenco, it's Andalusia. His family comes from the south of Spain. It's their way of holding on to their culture. And all his family, his uncles, aunts, his brothers, mother, father, are in flamenco. And when I heard him, we were both teaching. And I thought, well, you know, once the family's finished, let's start actually traveling the world and bringing this music to more places. So it started like that. And of course, the normal way of bringing music is to do concerts. So we started doing festivals and concerts with the Edinburgh Festival since 2000, and we were just doing it like that, the normal way. Sort of people come, they see a concert, you mix with it. It's a wonderful thing because you're sharing your music. Ricardo's a flamenco guitarist, so we often have dancers and singers that are in the flamenco tradition, and I'm the manager and the logistics person for that. I don't perform in that because for me, it really does come from that Andalusian background. We do a different thing when we're just the 2 of us working together with songs. But then we had an experience because we were doing the Edinburgh Festival, and a manager of a theatre in New Jersey, in the States, came to us and asked us to do a residency in New Jersey connected to his theatre, but going out into the community. And the idea was to take small workshops into various places in the community. So it was in schools, where kids from Hispanic backgrounds would feel kind of proud of their background because they were connected to this Spanish tradition and culture. And then we were also going into old people's homes, prisons, detention centres, a hospital, a school for very, very handicapped kids. We went to a halfway home for homeless people. We went to drug rehabilitation centres, all sorts of different places. It was extraordinary. And we were doing a workshop where we were teaching people to clap some rhythms, join in with us, if we could get them courageous enough to get them up and actually dancing. So they're stamping rhythms, and then we're teaching them arms and so on. And we had a dancer with us, a flamenco dancer, Lola, and it totally changed our lives because it blew us away. We just could see the power of how connecting to your body, how connecting to your heart, how connecting to music, how connected to your own rhythmic pattern, you know, getting back to that sense of being able to clap rhythms and have it go with music, blend it all. just transform people, especially very sad or unhappy people, like in the homeless place or in the drug rehabilitation, or some people like that in the detention centers where people have kind of lost themselves. These are quite young people in that center as well. And we could see how it totally changed them and brought joy. And we just said, well, we will always do our concerts, but we are now going to add this in. And so we started working in lots of different places. We work in all over Europe. We've done Cambodia, South America. We do a lot in East Africa, in Kenya, Tanzania, Zanzibar. We've done Ethiopia. Ricardo's done other things like composing music for Bollywood in India and MTV India as well, when he was brought over to Mumbai to do that. So, there's other things going on all the time. But there's this core thing that we discovered, which is we have something very special to share. And this bringing of unity and a sense of bringing yourself into community, but also back to your own self, bringing yourself to yourself. Watching some of those kids in the detention center not being able to clap the 4-beat rhythm, getting lost, and other people around them sweetly saying, just keep with it, you'll manage, and they do. And then suddenly when they do, and the music's brought in as well, it's an extraordinary moment, because they're just suddenly, oh yeah, there's something was lost there and it's come back. So, it's bringing people back to themselves, then bringing people together in community, sharing. When we go to East Africa, we're not going, look at us. We're going, this is what we do, and there's dance, and there's music, and there's rhythm, and, there's clapping. Let's see what you do, let's blend it in, let's mix things together. We do quite a lot of work, for example, in East Africa, which is in communities which would never have the opportunity to go to a theatre. We don't ask them for money. We bring this to them and they join in. We do children's homes. We've done all sorts of places that, like orphanages and amazing places. And, the joy we get out of that is extraordinary. And, we know that there is an effect which brings us all together, and it's got a more worldwide effect. It's a thing about how, look, we connect.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter who we are, we don't need the same language. We connect, and we connect deeply.
So, Ricardo, how about yourself? So, you're the musician here. You play phenomenally well.
Thank you.
What is this that really drives that passion behind your music? I mean, how the heck do you do it is really what I'm trying to say.
Well, first of all, it starts with the love of music. I mean, that's the main thing, that kind of pursuit of the music, and trying to perfect what you do, and you're kind of lost in it. And primarily, you play for people. You play for, as Julie was saying, everywhere in the world, in so many different social kind of contexts, and including like places in the slums in Kibera, and just outside of Nairobi, and all sorts of places like refugee camps in Jordan for Syrian refugees, and kids in schools, old people's homes, and all sorts of places. So music is the thing that I think the common denominator we all have together, and we share music, even though they're different kind of music. And I think in my case, I'm so much in love with music that I've kind of all along since I was a kid tried to play the tradition of music that I come from, which is Spanish guitar. So it's a mixture of classical and flamenco. But from that starting point, going into other cultures, other types of music, and you've always got so much to learn from different kind of ways of playing, some different chords and sounds that you little by little try to kind of integrate into your own music, including Indian music and African, South American, Chinese, Japanese, whatever, you get hold of something that say, oh wow, this sounds amazing, I want to try and emulate that, try to play those sounds, like, try to imitate the sound of a sitar with the guitar,
really,
all that kind of thing,
So, can we get a taste of some of your magic right now?
Yeah, of course. Like, for example, I'm talking about the sitar.
you talked about the hearts, and which is really how we gathered together, particularly for this particular festival, which is always getting people into hearts. And we saw people transform in front of our very eyes, and how it just lifted people. So, tell me, what are some of the most difficult situations where you've been in, wherever in the world, where it's really impacted on people's hearts?
I mean, I think the slums in Kibera have been the most interesting. The first project that we did there was very interesting. It was a Kenyan woman who had started a school for filmmaking in the slums. The Kibera, what is it called? Sun School, I'm not sure. Film school. And we went there and we met her, and she had the idea to bring together kids from the slums with kids in schools which are fee-paying and therefore quite, affluent families, wealthy children, and have them do music and dance together, and eventually work towards a performance together, with the idea that even within Kenya itself, and these are Kenyan kids, all of them, there are misunderstandings and disunity. And that by coming together to do the workshops and eventually the performance together, they would understand each other much better and come together in unity. And it was a beautiful project, really, really beautiful. But the first place that we did some rehearsals with the slum kids was a kind of community centre in the slums, which takes a bit of walking through, extraordinary slum streets with, dirty water kind of coursing down the middle and having to avoid your feet getting into it and so on. And then we went into this community centre, and 3 classes of school children were there ready to do their flamenco workshop. So it starts off, our workshop starts off with them just clapping some rhythms. Then Ricardo plays some really pretty music so that they quieten down and they learn their arms. But then we start to get them stamping the rhythm. And then, little by little they stamp, and they can stamp quite hard and quite fast, and they learn to put it with the music. But the minute they started stamping, the dust rose from this, it's an earthen floor. It was not by any means a proper floor. And the dust just rose crazily into the whole room, and we all had to rush out because we couldn't breathe at all.
Wow.
Absolutely. And the kids as well, coughing and everything.
That's great something.
It was really, really funny.
So what kind of music, you mentioned this music that you're playing with these kids, what kind of music do you want to
For
share?
example, for the arm part, when they are taught how to move first the wrist and the fingers, and then the arm to the flamenco movement. There's this particular style that we did quite a lot of, the tango flamenco.
And so one of your gifts, as well as being a manager and communicator, is singing. You know what I'm going to say, right? Can you share something, maybe even a sample of your singing voice, because you've got the most beautiful jazz voice and the blues voice, and it's truly astonishing. Would you mind sharing that?
Let's do something different then.
Okay.
Like not a Spanish song, so we'll do the French song.
Yes.
Yeah. Les feuilles mortes se ramassent à la pelle. Les souvenirs et les regrets aussi. Les feuilles mortes se ramassent à la pelle. Les souvenirs et les regrets aussi. Mais le vent du nord les emporte dans la nuit froide de l'oubli. Tu vois, je n'ai pas oublié la chanson que tu me chantais. C'est une chanson qui nous ressemble. Toi qui m'aimais, nous vivions tous les deux ensemble. Toi qui m'aimais, moi qui t'aimais. Mais la vie sépare tous ceux qui s'aiment. Deux amants en verre de bruit. Et les vagues s'effacent sur le sable. Les pas des amants
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
I just when you hear Ricardo playing something like that, you know, something I'd like to point out is that he is first and foremost a flamenco guitarist, and yet he can do everything. You know, he's a really eclectic, amazing guitarist. For me, he's done, you know, kind of like jazzy, bluesy stuff. He's done some Scottish stuff, you know, this kind of thing. And it's not just for me, he does that everywhere we go. So, you know, when we're with Indian musicians, he's blending in, he's creating music that, you know, pulls these two cultures together. Mm-hmm. That's the interesting thing. And in Africa, we work a lot with African musicians as well. And in South America, we worked with an Ecuadorian musician. You know, he is always able to do whatever is necessary, you know, in his own music to blend in the cultures, and it's a really beautiful thing to see. Right. So, you know, you're connecting with people, but then you're also actually within the music, creating that unity.
Share with us, so you've been on this journey together for a very long time. What's your future? What's the future hold for you? I mean, where in the world would people expect to see you?
Yeah, it could be anywhere. We just recently got back from Seattle, where Ricardo was teaching a residency at the University of Washington in the Department of Ethnomusicology, and this came out of a symposium of ethnomusicology that he did in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. And a person came over from Seattle from that department and employed him for the residency. So everything leads to another thing.
Yes.
And we are very open. We're like, we've got our little tentacles out there going, you know, what's next? We love the Edinburgh Festival, which we're about to do all of August. We do 3 shows this year. We've got one on a blend of Scottish and Spanish. We've got one which is called Flamenco Global, which is exactly what we do. It's our life, you know, it's flamenco. And there's dancer and there's percussionist and so on, maybe a singer. We had a singer last year, and then various people come in from different cultures. October we've got a tour of Japan. It's our second tour of Japan. Wow. So we're busy, you know, booking that at the moment, with a dancer, with 2 Japanese artists,
amazing musicians, yeah,
beautiful, amazing
dancers as well.
So, you know, you never know really.
Right,
and we are just living in this kind of fairly open kind of receiving mode, listening to what people, suggest next.
Yeah,
and
we do project with theatre and circus and all sorts of different.
Oh, we just did a circus in Denmark in December. Yeah, it was very cool. Yeah.
So how can people get hold of you or track you down? I mean, in terms of online, do you have a particular page, website?
I'd say Ricardo's page, Global Guitarist, on Facebook. That's Ricardo Garcia, Global Guitarist. But if you look up Global Guitarist, it comes up. And he also has a website, which is ricardogarciaguitarist.com. So it's quite simple, ricardogarciaguitarist.com.
Brilliant.
And
so
you can track us down through those two.
Okay, so for people watching the YouTube video, you'll see the link on the description and for also on the show notes for our podcast listeners. Now,
can I say one more?
Yeah, sure, of
Just
course.
one more little link is that on Instagram, we have Nomad Chi, which is one word, nomad, and the word chi, i.e. the energy of the nomad. And that tracks pretty much everywhere we go.
Right.
It's exploring more the sort of nomadic aspect of our life, which is quite an interesting one.
Yeah.
We're coming across digital nomads these days, a lot of them that are just traveling around doing digital work and so on. And ours is a different aspect to that because we are doing music.
Yes.
But it's really interesting because there is this whole nomadic thing going on in the world right now, and this is a way that people can track us down, know where we are, know what we're doing.
Nomad Chi.
And see pictures, so it's at Nomad Chi.
Perfect. Now, how long ago? All those years ago when I first heard you play, like I mentioned at the top of the show, I was just blown away, and I haven't got a musical note in me, I think.
He sings nicely.
And
I'm telling the truth here.
I sung earlier, by the way.
Yeah, he does sing well.
Earlier. But I just thought, I've got to collaborate, Having this kind of limiting belief that I had, I thought, well, how am I going to collaborate? And then last year, 2017, you asked me if I'd like to collaborate. And I thought actually, because of my connections, probably you wanted me to promote it. You said, no, something else.
Well, yeah, because that event is actually already very well attended.
Yes.
It's not that. It just kind of came to me that we've been talking about this, and this is something you could probably easily come and join in with, either just to see how it works. It's a kind of almost like a house concert, but we do it quite regularly, or to participate, and that is what you did.
Well, that is it. So this is when I thought, okay, maybe I could, with your permission, recite a poem that I write. And with you playing your guitar, to me that's like the most amazing thing that could have happened. And so 2 weeks passed, with 2-3 days to go, I hadn't written the poem. I was so busy. So I turned to my good friend Anka, and you'll hear more about Anka, who is a poetess. She's a world award-winning poet and author and all sorts of stuff. And she gave me this poem to read, and I tried to memorize it, didn't work, so I wrote it down. And then when I came and performed, and we had a couple of minutes practice before the performance, just saying the words and connecting into my own heart through poetry and through music, and then seeing the audience members' expressions on their face, and it almost looked like their heart was jumping out of their mouth, like we're all in love with each other. That feeling, forget drugs, it just beat them all. So, and I thought to myself there and then, we've got to do a collaboration. This is a year ago, just over a year ago actually, maybe 13 months ago. We're going to do a collaboration, and the Living from the Heart Festival was born. Now, we may call it other things, but it's essentially Living from the Heart. Now, what attracted you to want to, or what inspired you to want to do this, and where do you think we're going to be going with this, in your view?
I think it's going to grow. It was, it was a really beautiful thing. It's we all have been to conferences which are very wordy and very much living in your head and thinking things out and changing things out, transforming things, analysing things, whatever. This was dance. This was music. This was a lot of nature, which was really cool, and dance in nature and music in nature, beautiful as well. And then, some processes, some exercises, a lovely blend of different people, breathing, grounding. It was a really special weekend. And I can see it growing and transforming and, going into different places and so on. So, you know, it's one of those things, just like I always say, everything leads to the next thing.
Yes.
And we're just all we've opened our hearts
Yes.
to whatever it might be next.
Absolutely. And Ricardo, how about you? What was your feelings about this weekend and where we're going to go with this?
I think it was very, how could you say that? Everybody was complimentary. You know, there was so many different people from so many different backgrounds, and each of them had something different to bring. So it was very full of emotion, of beautiful moments, beautiful exercises like breathing and all the sort of things that people get together and as you said, from the heart, you know, more than from the head. So I think this kind of event is a very kind of organic kind of thing, which is very natural, and people don't have to think too much about it. Once you're in here and you enjoy everybody else's company, and you learn about all sorts of different things, and you participate and at the same time enjoy the acts, you know, like the Sufi group that came and beautifully managed together all together, I think.
Beautiful, excellent. So I know we're all running out of time because we all got to go different directions as well. Thank you so much for joining my podcast, my show, and we will do a lot of work together. And guys, gals, ladies, gentlefolk, gentle blokes, go onto Facebook, go onto Instagram, follow them. You've got the links over there, and if you can, wherever they are in the world, go and support them, because these are people who are living, they're actually living, breathing testimony of people who are operating from their hearts. Of course, you can't ignore your heads completely, otherwise you can't, you know, drive, and, you know, you can't get your planes on time, so you got to, you know, use your head as well. So, you know, don't ignore that. But what I found was most incredible is it was an egoless event, because everyone came into it. Now, what they do afterwards, it's up to them. So, let's do this. Let's get you to perhaps play us out on the Harun Rabbani Show instead of my usual theme tune.